Welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Stories and advice about moving forward, punching through that glass ceiling, pushing harder, and blazing trails from women we really admire.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Brohan, and I'm here with Mary Olivieri.
Hey, how's it going? And we are here with a totally kick-ass woman. Liz, why don't you talk a little bit about Mary Tobiason?
Well, first, I'm going to play a game.
Okay.
So I was thinking about Mary Tobiason, and I kept thinking, can I describe her in one word? And the word kept coming up as tough. Now, that doesn't really do her justice. But Mary, when you think of kick-ass women, you Mary,
okay.
My Mary. When you think of kick-ass women and you think of tough, who comes to mind?
Okay. Well, Amelia Earhart comes to mind because she had some guts in doing what she did. Harriet Tubman for obviously different reasons. And was it Rosie the Riveter? Is that right?
Oh. Rosie the Riveter is very cool. I love that you threw in a whole generation of women.
Why not?
And they were tough as nails, and that's pun intended to all of those Rosies out there. So yes, we're here to talk today with Mary Tobiason, and like I said, tough gets us started in the conversation, but you're going to learn so much more. Mary is the owner of Athletic Movement Perfected. And what she does with her and her team of coaches and trainers is that they train children. They train normal people like me who are not genetic freaks, which are her words, not mine. So it's an exciting organization that helps everybody with their wellness and fitness goals. But there's much more to her story than that. We really consider her superhuman. And let me tell you why. So Mary has now competed in over 20 Ironman competitions. Let me repeat that, 20 Ironman competitions. 10 of those have been world championship competitions, and she always ranks extremely high. I mean, talk about superhuman. But that's not everything she's known for. It's just so exciting to talk about. She is known for her extremely positive attitude, and she's known for her very deep generosity. There's so much to this kick-ass woman I know you're going to enjoy. So Mary Tobiason, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you both for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
We're happy to have you. All right, so this is all about kick-ass women, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. But I am starting to discover that there are a few things that a lot of kick-ass women have in common. It's the toughness, but it's where that originated from. So I would love to hear how you ended up being someone who is a masochist and likes to torture herself by exercising. I'll be over here going, go, drinking my beer. But can you tell us, how did you end up being this tough woman? Yeah.
As I've said many times, I was raised by wolves. So tumultuous childhood, like so many of us have had. Alcoholic mother who died young, a lot of fighting in the household. So when I was 7, I started putting on my shoes and leaving and running as fast as I could and as far as I could. Wow. And I loved that feeling. So I found at a very young age it was something I could control that made me feel good. And I think as a child, there's so many things you can't control. So finding that was such a gift for me. I certainly was loved by my parents, but they, like many, just had a lot of issues. And just other traumas growing up. My brother died when I was 10. We were in the water together. He drowned. So he was 5, I was 10, and we were swept up in an undertow. And again, trying to hold on to things that I could control in a life that seemed like there were a lot of bad things I couldn't control. And it made me happy. So trying to find that happiness in things that belonged to me that weren't a result of other people.
It's really interesting because a lot of times, and I've known all different types of women who have endured trauma, it's what you decide to do with that trauma, right? And we've heard of you can be a victim, a survivor, or a thriver. I would totally put you in the thriver category. And that's really what makes you a kick-ass woman, because all of those things, you belong to some clubs that nobody would electively want to join, right?
Right.
In terms of being raised by wolves, right? But you've
Right.
turned that into something that's sustaining you, and you're making a living out of it.
Yes.
So tell us about that journey a little bit.
Well, I also had my children young, so relatively soon after college, I got pregnant, had my son at 21, had my daughter at 23, both surprises. And it wasn't the Holy Spirit. But I'm telling you.
Well, your name is Mary,
but I'll
the
tell you
Immaculate
what,
Conception.
I was surprised. And not only did I find out that I was pregnant, I was 6 months pregnant with my son when I found out I was pregnant. I mean, and my dad asked me,
everybody who's listening is going to be like, girl,
really?
how?
Well,
Yeah.
I was really small, and I also was gassy. So I thought that I had gas. So I went to the doctor with bad gas, and like, that gas is a boy. So
Did you name him Gas? I'm just curious.
Well, no, his name is Jake, and he causes me gas pains, but he's wonderful. But that was, I don't know, it was my wake up call to grow up and focus and get your crap together, and you're going to have a baby. So I think a lot of it was redefining myself. So I had degrees in journalism, communication, sports science, and a minor in sports psychology. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with this?
Well, you're an underachiever, clearly.
Right.
So,
So I started working for my dad because I was pregnant. So I kind of took the easy way out. Was very unhappy in that environment because I wanted to be with my kids. So I decided to just go back to my passion. I didn't care if I had to get up at 3 a.m. as long as I could be there with my babies. So, so that's what I did, and I made a career out of it. Started coaching, teaching classes. I started amassing other certifications and nutrition in special populations, in the elderly and people with range of motion limitations, special needs people, just all different realms of needs for people. So sports nutrition, did a little bit more in psychology and loved it, but also just wanted to be able to help people. I mean, I'm a huge empath, to a fault. It may kill me someday, but wanting to empower people with some of the knowledge that I have to make them feel better and to make people understand that you are totally in control and you only get one shot at all of this.
So you took something that could potentially have been something that was debilitating, and you turned that into putting it back out there to help other people feel good and feel better. And I think that is really, remarkable. So.
And I'd love to know, and I'm sure our listeners would love to know, out of trauma, out of surprise, you've really challenged, channeled it in the best direction, as Mary pointed out. What advice would you have for listeners who might be experiencing some of those same things to move it into a positive realm and not dwell on it as the negative that you're stuck with for the rest of your life?
Well, there are a couple coping mechanisms that I've always applied for myself. And one of the things that I do daily, the end of the day, I always ask myself, what gives me the most energy and what takes the most away?
And I love that. Say that again.
Yeah. So what gives you the most energy and what takes the most away? It could be, it could be a part of your job. It could be another human. It could be a task that you do, whatever that is. And if you find patterns, then you have to make changes. No one's going to make them for you. You have to do it. And the other is just, it's so important for everyone. And we hear a lot about mindset, and mindset is a part of everything you do. So there's 3 conditions to the human mind. It's your circumstances, your thoughts, and your feelings. So your circumstances are what's going on right now in this moment. So right now I am in Wheaton. I am in a building with 2 women. And my thoughts could be, I am scared to death. I think one of them has a gun. And my feelings could be, holy crap, get me out of here. Or I could take those same circumstances and think, I am with two of the most amazing women that I have been with in so long, and my feelings are complete elation. It's all, how are you framing those circumstances? And that is your choice. And if you're stopping and you find that there's a pattern within yourself, that you are continually framing things negatively, you need to figure that out.
So it sounds like a really great way to start
Right.
is to just break it down
Right.
into this moment.
Right.
And does this moment bring you joy or
Yes.
does this moment bring you
Yeah.
trauma?
And ultimately, we are responsible for ourselves and for our thoughts and for our feelings. And everyone brings an energy into the room. You can bring this amazing energy and change the dynamic of a room, or you can go in as a vampire and suck the life out of everyone
Oh, we
there.
all know vampires like
but
that.
don't be that person. And you create your own reality. So,
Well, don't you agree too that, and this is very much personal mindset for me, is that what you put out there is what you get back, right?
absolutely.
And so if you're putting out the negativity, that's what you're going to attract.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, you
Right.
talk about being an empath, right?
Yes.
I am a fellow empath. And I would say, anybody who's listening, for empaths, we often take on way too many, there's no ego boundaries. We take on a ton of
Yes.
other people's emotions.
Right.
How do you balance that so it doesn't get under your skin, do you know? And then you are suddenly as sad as the person you're feeling.
I'm
You know?
working-
Or get taken
Yeah.
advantage of, quite
Right.
honestly.
I am a work in progress. Honestly, I'm working on my boundaries more often lately as the business is growing. I find more personalities in my life that I know I have to create boundaries with. And that's hard for me because I do want to help. But when I realize it's damaging me, where I go to bed feeling so heavy or with anxiety about someone else's challenges that I realize are really ridiculous, that it's not mine,
Yeah.
And some of the things with what some of my athletes are, type A Ironman, and I have a lot of just wonderful, normal, everyday people trying to be more fit. And generally it's the type A that are a little bit wackadoodle, that want, that are crying because they're not as fast as they were yesterday, or, what if my shoe comes untied and I fall, or, my car got hit by a water buffalo. It's so insane, but things are magnified, and just taking a step back and saying, this is supposed to be fun. Fitness and movement are supposed to be for wellness. And if it's not bringing you both emotional and physical wellness, then you have to reevaluate.
That
Yeah.
must be part of the perfection that's in the name of
Yes.
your company.
It is.
It's not a negative,
No.
have to be perfect.
No. And it's finding what's perfect for you. So the way I approach everyone, it's, through an intake process, you figure out, what does this person need? So talking to them about their lifestyle, about how does their body move? What is their health like? How do they think? What are their ups and what are their downs? What's going to help this athlete achieve their goals and feel better? So movement and health and wellness is just as much emotional as it is physical.
And that's so applicable to anybody. And
Yes.
we're talking about, being a kick-ass woman.
right.
It is so applicable no matter what. You should still be
Exactly.
asking yourself those
Right.
questions.
Exactly. Why am I doing this? Whether it's I'm walking on my treadmill or I'm doing an Ironman, it doesn't matter. What's your why? If it's not for you, and if it's not for you to feel good and for you to have a longer, healthier life, then that's a problem.
Right.
And even though, my workout is a little bit more ridiculous than most people, it's a workout. I mean, I am not, I made money racing a few times,
Right.
in my-
'Cause- so there's it's a
well,
passion.
And even the people that are making money are not paying their bills with it. It's like, oh, you won $3,000. I mean, okay, that might pay for my plane fare.
But let me
Right.
ask you this.
Right.
So you
Yes.
said, you talked about the why.
Right.
Do you encounter, and again, I'm thinking about women, do you encounter people coming to you with a why that has nothing to do with them and it's about a partner?
Absolutely.
How do
Absolutely.
you talk to them about that?
That's not the right mindset. That unless they can come back, I can't really coach someone that comes with that, because it's not theirs to fulfill that for another person.
Nice.
And you can't You can't do anything for someone else that's that physical, mental, or emotional. At the end of the day, you are given one person to take care of, and it's not your children, it's yourself. Your entire life. Eventually, everyone at some point is going to be alone, and you're going to have to take care of yourself. So if you're not doing that, it's no one else is going to. It's we need people in our lives to help boost you up and support and bounce things off of. I'm a firm believer in you need to have a network. Absolutely. You need love. You need to support, but you can't do things for other people.
You're definitely building in quite a bit of sports psychology and just general psychology in the help that you're providing, particularly probably, I would think, for women, to get them to think about the why for myself.
Exactly.
Versus the why because I want to look better for my husband.
Right. And that's a real interesting thing because when people come to me and they say, I'm training for, I want to do an Ironman and it's going to help me lose, X amount of weight. It's not, because you have to eat all carbs. So you're not going to lose weight. And if you don't eat carbs, you won't finish. And you need a lot, up to 5,000 calories a day.
So ladies, you hear that?
Right.
Eat carbs. You can eat all the carbs you want if you're doing an Ironman.
Right. But you need carbs.
Yeah.
We all do, or you get crabby. And, and you look like crap and you don't think straight. And it's, carbohydrates are huge. And when people decide that a food group or one of your macros is the enemy, it just makes me crazy. It absolutely insane. Every food group has a purpose in your metabolic function.
Well, since you mentioned training for Ironman, tell us about some of those experiences. I mean, it's really incredible.
you had to have run into something.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, I would love to hear one of your crazy Ironman stories.
There's so many, but let me think. Last summer, I had a couple. So within the last year, I was out training and I got hit by a semi. And I was in Michigan. That was insane. And I was knocked off my bike. I was up in the air and I thought, this is my last day on earth. And I'm looking at the pavement thinking, oh my gosh, this is the way I'm going to go. And I hit the pavement and my hip was like, oh my gosh, massacred. And I'm looking at my bike and thinking, okay, can I get up? And I got up and it was great. And there was a cop behind me. So he called another squad car to go get the semi, but he assessed me and he said, I've got to call someone for you. So they called my partner. He comes out and he said, are you okay? In the meantime, I have like a softball on my hip. It was the biggest, and I couldn't wear my shorts. I had to take a scissors and cut my shorts because they were busting out. And I kept telling John, my partner, could you get my chain on? Could you get my chain on? And he
on
kept
your bike?
On my bike.
I see.
So I flipped the bike over and he said, okay, get in the truck. And I said, no, I'm going to finish my ride. So
that's tough.
That's tough.
No,
and you did.
Right, I did.
Oh,
I
my
did.
gosh.
And
Right, the rest of us would be going, how long until the ambulance gets here?
Right. But I always view it as a get to. I mean, I think it is such a freedom to be able to move. And, my grandmother said to me when my kids were little, we were at her house and they were running around like crazy people. And I kept telling them, stop. And she said, if they were in wheelchairs, you would not be saying that. You'd wish they were running around the house. And I think of that all the time, the gift of movement, where it truly is a gift to be able to move. What if you couldn't walk? What if you couldn't ride your bike? And I know that was stupid. That was not a smart thing to do, get back on my bike. And I'm in full acknowledgement of that, but I did it. And I know I'm a little screwed in the head, but yeah. And then last summer, I was exiting the water at a race at an Ironman in Ohio, and I was hit really hard in the mouth, and my front tooth was knocked out. And it was super painful, but I remember getting out of the water, assessing it, and it's hanging there, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try to keep going. So I was on the bike, and my mouth was bleeding a ton, and it kept flapping like when I would drink, but it didn't hurt
I'm having
that bad.
sympathetic dental pain right
and
now.
I was drinking blood, and I was like, this is really gross. But I kept thinking, well, I don't feel that bad. It hurts, but it's not that bad. So the time that I got on the run, I ate the tooth.
You ate the tooth?
I ate the tooth, and I was like, this is just so gross. So I finished, and my biggest thing was, okay, don't smile for the finish. Don't smile for the finish. And I crossed the finish line, and I said to one of my teammates, I said, Houston, we have a problem. And I went right to an emergency dentist. It was pretty funny though. I don't think that was stupid because I felt okay, but I don't know. I just don't like quitting. I don't like quitting.
Oh, nice.
I can't. I think I stop and I think, okay, what would it feel like if you stopped tomorrow? Would you wish you had tried? And that's all you can do in anything, right? You don't know unless you try.
Those are normal things
yeah,
to ask
right,
yourself. I
right.
truly believe that. I
Yeah.
mean, nobody can really do what you do, get hit
Right.
by a semi and get back on the bike, get a tooth knocked
Right,
out and
right.
get back on the bike.
Right. Yeah.
But how do we scale some of that
Yeah.
for normal people
Right.
like me, just
yeah.
to keep me going?
Well, and if you stop and you think, okay, I'm going to push myself into tomorrow or when I come home tonight, how will I feel if I made this decision? Will I have any regret? Will I wish I had tried to do this or see it through and maybe fail or maybe not fail? And I like putting myself into future me and to see what would
interesting.
future
Yep.
me think. So, and that's a great thing to talk to athletes about. You're on your treadmill run and it says 4 miles and you're at 3 and I'm tired. How are you going to feel if you complete it or if you quit early? I mean, do you feel any differently? If you don't, then do what you need to do. But if you hold that at a higher level of accomplishment for yourself, then push yourself.
See, I love that, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's another great piece of advice for our listeners, right? Ask yourself how you're going to feel, right?
Right.
As mothers, I'm sure
Right.
we've had those
Yes.
conversations with our kids
Yes.
who don't want to do their homework and saying,
Yes.
it's going to feel so much better when you're done with
Yes.
your homework, right?
Right.
I
Right.
love that as a general rule of life.
Right.
Ask yourself how you're going to feel. And if it's
Right.
not
Right.
going to bother you,
Right.
then great.
Absolutely.
Then don't force
Yes.
yourself, right?
Exactly. Right. And remembering
It's-
your why.
It's a micro moment.
It
It's
is.
really living in the moment to
Yes.
assess
Right.
how do I
Right.
keep going.
Yeah.
And it's certainly, like Mary was just saying,
Right.
applies more than
Yes.
just sports scenarios.
absolutely.
Everything you're doing,
Right.
whether you've got a hard assignment at work
Yes, right.
or, you need to bring yourself to make a difficult phone call. It can apply to
Right.
everything we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, like we said,
Right.
just breaking it down.
And I feel that that's extremely applicable to procrastination. How am I going to feel tonight if I don't get that done? Or if I just spend another hour and I get it all done, what is the rest of my week? What does tomorrow look like? And getting things done. And I'm a huge taskmaster, like list maker, get it done, get it done, get it done.
Okay, wait. I have to ask you a question, okay? Because
Right.
I'm guilty of this.
Right.
If I do something
Yeah.
that's not on my list, do you go back and write it on
Oh,
the list and cross
absolutely.
it off?
Absolutely.
I am
Me
guilty
too.
of
Credit,
that.
credit.
Credit.
I
You
want
got to get your
credit.
Yeah,
credit.
absolutely. And God forbid I leave the house without my Garmin. Because if I don't get credit for every movement, I'm walking the dogs. Gonna put it
I
on
better
a
get
walk.
credit.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And that's kind of a big thing, or the Apple Watch or whatever, or the Fitbit, people that really get into that. It's that mentality of, we're in a very data-driven society.
Well, and it's not crazy. What
No.
we're really doing is building self-confidence.
Exactly.
We're
Right.
getting to the next step.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I love the part of self-recognition
Yes.
for having done something good
Right.
or done something
Right.
on time.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great feeling. And it's that's what gets us up and gets us feeling better about who we are and who we're becoming. And I think it's that, it's that barometer where you can see yourself progressing. I did this last week and now I've done this week and I'm just getting stronger and I'm getting better and, where's my medal?
Where's my medal?
That's so great.
I think that's great.
Right. It
I
is.
know we're getting close
Yeah.
to needing to wind it down. Any other advice? And I'm going to circle back to where we started, right? If you've in a trauma situation and having been in a childhood that was less than ideal. I love the story of the running. Are there any other tips you want to give to perhaps people who are listening who have struggled with that too and maybe aren't at the thrive stage right now?
It's really about taking responsibility for yourself, and you have to. I mean, we can play the blame game all we want. Everyone's we all have trauma of some sort. And, I know millions and millions of people have far worse trauma than I had, or maybe will have, but you are responsible for yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, and the way you react. So no matter how old you are, you can own it and you can make changes. And I know some people's resources aren't as vast as others.
Right.
However, your emotional state is controllable. It truly is. I mean, and if you're in a bad situation, trying to find resources to get out, always reach out to people that can help you. And you've got to own yourself. You've just got to own yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great note to
And a great
end
place
on.
to start is
Right.
find things you can control.
Exactly.
And channel them into
Right.
positive energy.
Right.
Good
And surround
point.
yourself with positive people.
Another great point.
Right. Yes.
Well, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. Your stories are just incredible. We do think you're a kick-ass woman and a superwoman, all rolled up in one.
seriously, I
You guys
just
are
can't. I
wonderful.
can't even imagine jogging around the block, frankly. So I mean, it's pretty impressive, and hopefully, all of the women out there that are listening, and even some of the men, if you're listening too, because she is a kick-ass woman. She probably kick your ass in just about any athletic endeavor.
Oh, no. No.
But we're just really grateful for the advice, and I love that, especially like the thinking at night what served you and what didn't serve you. I think is going to be something a lot of people can take away. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me. It's
Oh,
been
it's
a
our
joy.
pleasure. It's also our pleasure to tell you about our sponsors. We're extremely grateful to have them on board as well. I'd like to thank the Motion Agency. They're one of the premier marketing communications firm, and they are the largest women-owned advertising firms in Chicago. So congratulations to them. I'd also like to thank Embas. Embas is a consultancy that specializes in business strategy, marketing strategy, and content development. So thank you very much to both of them.
Also, hey, if you want to listen in or listen to this one again, because it's a good one, you can visit our website at
What is it?
Where?
What is it? Oh my gosh, I'm just in the presence of greatness. So you can visit our website, kick-ass-women.com. To learn more about Mary and to just be inspired by other kick-ass women. You can also listen to the podcast on iHeartRadio. You can stop by YouTube, and we are on Spotify and iTunes as well. So, hey, tell your friends about the Kick-Ass Women podcast and get more great content like this to be a kick-ass woman.